I got this hamper that can separate your clothes in 3 different ways, but for some reason I could never remember where my tops, bottoms, and bulky clothes should go. I'm thinking of creating some 3D printed hooks or labels I can hang on those bars so I can easily know where my bottoms, bulky, and tops go. I start by grabbing my digital calipers and measuring the bar. I want that hook to wrap around it, and it looks like it came out to around 20 millimeters. With my measurements, I go straight to Tinkercad, think for a bit, and then I open up Thingiverse. I'm not sure exactly what to search, so I type in label hook, sounds like what I need, and of course there's nothing. I head back to Tinkercad, and I start by creating the label that the hook will be attached to. I decide to make the label 20 millimeters by 40 millimeters, and I just have to add text to it, so I'll start with tops. And I'm thinking of having a height for the word tops at 3 millimeters. I create a rod or cylinder just for reference, and I make it 20 millimeters in diameter, just like the rod I measured with my calipers. That way I could know how big to make the hook so it wraps around. I change its orientation and just leave it on there for reference to use in the future. So now it's time to try to create that hook. I decide the only thing that looks like a hook is a question mark. So I searched for that in Tinkercad. I did find a question mark, but it wasn't one I was looking for, and I can't change the diameter within that question mark to create a hook. So now I go to Thingiverse, type in question mark, and again, couldn't find what I was looking for. So now I'm back in Tinkercad, and I choose this hollow cylinder, almost thin donut, and I decide to pull out a cube and turn it into a rectangular prism. I use that prism to use the tool where I can make that prism a hole, and it takes away part of another shape. And now it's starting to look a little more like a hook. I have my 20 millimeter rod there for reference, and I'm just going to grab the label that says tops, orient it correctly, and try to fit it with the flat side of the bottom part of that hook so it can attach when it 3D prints. Keep in mind I have that rod there for reference, but I have actually not used it once to reference the hook, so I think it's okay if I decide to delete it. With that done, now I have to group everything so everything stays together so I can get it ready to print. Now I have to decide how I want to orient this object. That plays a key role in deciding how it will print. I'm honestly not sure which orientation would be the best, but I decided to make the letters at the bottom, and I know that my printer can create supports because I'm gonna have to lift it up a couple millimeters so the hook doesn't go through the plane. And when the printer creates supports, I know that that 3 to 2 millimeter lift will be supported. Now with my object completed, I gotta export it from Tinkercad to Cura. I select STL, it downloads, and then I open up Cura. From my downloads, I drag my STL file, and one thing I gotta make sure is that I have supports on, which I do. I use a structure called tree, and I slice. Comes out to a whopping 29 minutes and 9 cents to create. That's why I love 3D printing. I'm hoping those supports do their job. I'm a little worried with the lettering because it's kind of tiny, and I'm not sure how those supports will hold up with that. So I send off my print through Wi-Fi, and it starts printing. This is my favorite part because I could watch this all day. 20 minutes later, it's completed, and I just bend the base plate I have, and it takes it off pretty easily. And now I have to pull off those supports. I use tweezers. I think it's the best way to do it. I have the most control. But I did have the hardest time getting those supports off in between the letters. I did have some supports that still stuck, and as you'll see in a moment, it doesn't look that pretty. You can tell that it's 3D printed, and the letters look pretty bad. So I'm not too sure how well I think this print did. It may have been because of the supports, but we gotta check if it fits. Looking back in the video, when I said I didn't need the 20 millimeter diameter rod for reference, so I think it's okay if I decide to delete it. I was wrong. I go back to Tinkercad, and I just think I'm gonna scale up everything equally. I hold shift, and I grab one of the corners, and I try to make it about 26.4 millimeters in height. Remember, the rod is 20, so I'm guesstimating 26.4 should be fine. I add it to Cura, slice it up, It's gonna take a little longer, 56 minutes, but I think this will work out. I also decided to change the orientation so the letters come out looking nicer, and I think it came out way better. Taking it out was a little bit easier as well, and as you'll notice with the tweezers, I took off everything pretty easily, and it's clean. Nothing in between the letters. The letters look a lot more clear. The back doesn't look as good, but the front is what matters. So it's time to check if it fits. And it fits perfectly. It clicks perfectly. My guesstimations were actually pretty good. I did hear a slight crack, so I'm not taking it off again because I'm scared if I take it off, the hook may break. With this success, I go into Tinkercad, and all I do is just copy and paste my design, and I actually have to change the text. So I ungroup the first one, click on the text, make it bottoms, have to change the size a little bit, it's bigger than the word tops. And I do the same for bulky. Make it smaller, make sure it's even, and it all looks good so far. So I just grab the STL files for those two on the right, drag it to Cura, hit slice, and I let the printer do its thing. Again, my favorite part is just staring at this all day. So I follow the same process, take off the pieces with my tweezers, and this looks great. It looks clean, just like the Tops label. And I'm gonna do something a little extra, and I think it's needed. It's gonna differentiate the letters from the background, so I'm gonna paint them white. And I think it came out great. The letters are nice and big to see, white color. And you can't forget that I have to paint the one that's already on there that I don't want to take off because I don't want to break it. I have to say, as a beginner, I think it looks great. I was able to give them a little wiggle and they're not coming off. Now I'll always know how to organize my clothes and put them where they need to be. Thanks for watching, and I love creating these videos because I'm a beginner at 3D printing, and I try to take the easiest and fastest way. Even if I make mistakes, it's a fun and great experience.